Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your joining the breakout session about new leaders, collaboration with school system leaders across the country as part of our strategic partnerships work. I know that people are probably really sick of looking at slides. We're just going to spend about 2 minutes. I'm going to give you a very quick introduction to the strategic partnerships work, and then we'll have a panel discussion with Dan and Liz, who I'll introduce in a minute, to talk about their experience working with the strategic partnerships team. Great. So our strategic partnerships work evolved out of feedback that we were hearing from our alumni. In the 2022 alumni survey, nearly 1 in 3 alumni indicated that they aspired to superintendent positions. Currently, 11% of our alumni are in C-level positions that we consider to be sort of on track to the superintendency. Currently, 1.2% of alumni are actually in superintendent seats. And we heard from alumni that they really value the New Leaders Alumni Network and that they felt that that was important to help them continue to grow into these positions, was tapping into the resources and the network that New Leaders offers. Our strategic partnerships work directly engages with school system leaders focused on practices, systems, structures, processes to promote organizational effectiveness. We create customized scopes of work that are tailored to school systems context and particular leaders' needs. We focus on critical self-reflection, shared problem solving, and helping to build capacity of adaptive leaders who can manage change and tackle complex issues. This is our theory of action for our strategic partnerships work. The why of our strategic partnerships work is the same as our alumni impact work, which Michelle Pierre-Farid profiled earlier in this conversation. We do this work through sort of 4 prongs: executive coaching, strategic advising, leadership team development, and project support. With executive coaching being, I guess, pretty self-explanatory, strategic advising being sort of your more traditional consulting work, leadership team development being working directly with like a cabinet team, for example, or other district leadership team, and project support being capacity for a specific initiative or project that does not include any sort of consulting or coaching component. Here's kind of the overview of our alumni impact versus our strategic partnerships work. There's some overlap, but also some important distinctions. Our alumni impact work is meant to be lifetime supports that span a variety of different types of personal and leadership development areas, individually, group-based, whereas our strategic partnerships work is meant to be a time-limited partnership with individual leaders that are centered on a specific scope of work. Our alumni impact work is focused on programming and networking. Our strategic partnerships work is focused on the 4 areas that I spoke to a minute ago. Our alumni impact services are only offered to alumni and are directly aligned to the mission of New Leaders. Our strategic partnerships work are offered to alumni, but also to non-alumni who are doing mission adjacent, but not necessarily directly mission aligned work in supporting students of color. Most of our alumni impact offerings are offered at no or very low cost to alumni. Some programs are offered to alumni and their teams at a very slight cost, but most are not, whereas our strategic partnerships work is a paid consulting engagement. Okay, so I promised you that I would make that quick. I'm going to quickly introduce our 2 panelists. Elizabeth Kirby brings over 2 decades of experience in education. Her most recent role before assuming the superintendency in the Cleveland Heights University Heights School District was Chief of School Strategy and Planning for the Chicago Public Schools. She has background as a teacher, principal, central office administrator, and is a native of Cleveland, my hometown also, holding degrees from Harvard University and the University of Chicago. Dan Swartz currently serves as the education director at Beth El Hebrew Congregation. He has a strong background in education leadership. He most recently served as the director of curriculum, instruction, and assessment in Skokie School District 73.5, and as the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation here, Mundelein School District 75, where he oversaw curriculum development and professional development initiatives. And he's been recognized for his many contributions in education, having received the ALAS Central Office Administrator of the Year Award. So thank you, both of you very much for being here. Let's go ahead and jump into some of our discussion questions. Can each of you please describe your work with the Strategic Partnerships team and talk a little bit about sort of the goals of the partnership and the key initiatives that you're working on?
You want me to go first?
Sure, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. So when you put up that slide about all the different offerings that you have, I think we used all 4 of them. Our goal really was to change the culture of the school district to be focused on being results oriented in terms of using data to drive the improvement process. And so we met with small groups, we met with larger groups of teachers, and then ultimately we also brought in our instructional coaches as part of the work to change that kind of culture of I think I feel to a culture of really looking at data to know that we were moving in the right direction. We're trying to close gaps of achievement, really growth and achievement, I should say, for all of our students in the district. And that was just recently in Skokie 73.5.
I agree with Dan. Just really quick, Jenny, how much time do we have? Because I don't want to talk too long.
We have 20 minutes.
Okay. I would say yes, we've used just about all of the services, and the reason why it was important for me was because I came from Chicago, big district, super data driven, lots of accountability, to a much smaller suburban district that doesn't really think it's small, but it's small compared to a 300,000 plus district. And sometimes in suburban districts, there's different kind of pressures and accountability. And it's not that people don't want kids to do well, but a lot of those systems were kind of in different places, multiple data systems. Maybe people looked at them, maybe they didn't. Even if they did look at them, some people understood them, some people didn't, and so I knew that I needed to new leaderize my district. I needed to get everybody passionate about the work, strong skill set consistently, having a hard conversation, all those pieces. And so when I became a superintendent, I didn't fire anybody and I didn't bring anybody. And so that's hard. It's probably a good thing to do if you can, but it was hard because a whole philosophy about the work, really having to move people who were in very different places along and manage all that, psychological stuff that happens when people are dealing with change as well. So for me, I found that having new leaders as a thought partner, I needed somebody to talk to too, while I was doing the work. So I really couldn't talk to the team because the team didn't know me and maybe I'm going to fire them, So probably the most important part of the partnership for me is actually the relationship and the discussion, so, and I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Great. Thank you both. Can you talk a little bit about the ways that the partnership has supported growth and your leadership skills and your mindset, and in particular, sort of talking about the expertise that the Strategic Partnerships team has brought to the engagement and any resources that have been shared with you that you've leveraged?
So I was resonating with what Superintendent Kirby was saying about having a thought partner. I think that is something that is really important, especially as you move into central office, in that making sure that there's somebody who you can bounce ideas off of and really test your thinking out. I think the other piece of it that I really leveraged new leaders on is having somebody else in the conversation so that it wasn't just Dan was telling us to do this. It was, this is what an outside observer is seeing, and now we can respond to it together. I often would be telling my teams, this is a way to enable, it's hard to be a prophet in your own land. And, you know, this was a way to enable us to respond to observations together, as opposed to me bringing the observations to the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I work with both Michelle and Jenny know Cleveland, so that helps me because I'm in Cleveland Heights, which is right next to Cleveland. They know a lot of people. They know the crazy state of Ohio, and had a very strong reputation. So that brought a lot of credibility to working with the team. So even if people disagreed, everybody knows that like Michelle is like a giant in Cleveland. So it just kind of, people don't always like giants, but still like they know she knows what she's talking about. And so for us, so what we really needed in my district was a really robust strategic plan. So, you know, we had a plan, but the plan had like one number in it, graduation. And we almost hit that number. And it was a good start, but we, you know, there are multiple metrics, of course, that you have to, that you're accountable for. And you also want to make sure all kids, you know, are learning. But I also needed to help attach the work of all of the central office departments so that it wasn't just teaching and learning, you know, we had a lot of pressure, but everyone thinking through what does proficiency look like in nutrition, operations, safety, you know, cleanly, like all those pieces. And we're still working on that. We first really had to make sure everybody understood logic modeling. And that was, I can tell you, the first year was a really big challenge, even for me, because when I did my new leaders training, we didn't do like, you know, we did a lot of training. I mean, I was cohort 2, so it was a long time ago. By the way, I didn't get a bail. I don't know what y'all talking about. I didn't get a bail, but
we'll have to fix that.
Please do. I would like my bill. No, but yeah, so just like that kind of stuff, like logic modeling, you know, really, you know, the leading, lagging, implement, you know, indicator kind of pieces, even really trying to identify what this quality really mean in this, you know, this area. So I would say to Jenny, you know, can you send me some models? Can you send me some best practices? Can you send me some language? Like, so Jenny would be like on the ground kind of searching for things that I just didn't have the time to do. And my team also didn't really understand what I wanted necessarily or wouldn't tell me. So, you know what I mean? So I needed like some folks who just say, hey, we're trying to figure this out. What do you see out there? Etc. We, as an example, our evaluation system in central office was not, it was okay, but it wasn't really tied to data or like any leadership behaviors. And so Michelle, Jenny, and Ashley worked with my HR team to build out a new evaluation system for our executive cabinet, so that people can have real conversations and you know, can the kids read or not? You know, like not kind of like, yeah, well, we met and have the PD and we're all proficient, right? So that was very helpful for me. And again, that's to do it in a safe space for me where I could say, I don't really know this. Does this sound right to you? Am I missing something? It's so important for me in my role.
I think I would add to what you were saying. We also used new leaders to do some professional learning for the team, and it sort of leveled the playing field. We all now had a same experience with each other of learning. We also had now a kind of set vocabulary. So when we were talking, we knew what we were talking about instead of an interpretation of what other people's words were.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you both. Can you talk a little bit about the changes that you've made as a result of your work with the strategic partnerships team? And if you have a specific example, we'd appreciate that.
I actually added a position in my cabinet and just kind of changed some of the organizational structures to be more aligned to our needs and strategic plan. And those things are not easy to do. We're lucky to have a grant that a cabinet member wrote, a big grant that helped us open up our college and career work, which was good. And that led us to make some other changes in personnel. And honestly, Jenny and Michelle really helped talk me through all those changes. We're actually still working on it, still working on that right now, just in terms of roles, responsibilities, reporting, accountability, you know, all those kinds of things as well. That was a really big change. That was a really big change for us and for me. And then, you know, some other leadership moves within the district as well. What I can say that I appreciate is that, so like when I say new leader, you know, I really mean that. So like when I was in the cohort, you know, everybody was embrace the mission, you know, really pro kid, pro results. You know, it's a tribe, you know, it's we're a clique. But when you get away from it, you can kind of forget that. And there's like multiple reasons why stuff can't be done and you can't do, you know, like it's a lot of that. And so for me, it's helped, especially in Chicago, where you kind of still had that under the leadership that I was working with. So what it provides for me now is, and this is the changes made, but this helps the changes. So I'm kind of answering two questions. But it provides the accountability to make the hard decision. So like, you know, when I meet with Jenny and Michelle every other week, you know, they keep the run, you know, new leadership, but they're very organized, run all that stuff. And I'm like, remember you say you're gonna do this? Da da da. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about this. Okay, I ain't get to it yet, you know, but you need that, you know, because my board is great, but my board isn't in the weeds, or should they be? So they don't know all like the stuff that I'm really working on to make sure that the work moves forward, even in tough stuff. So it's almost like, I mean, it's really like an accountability conversation that you can't really wiggle out of just to keep you on track. As leader, I need that. I just need that reminder and a little bit of that pressure and a little bit of that you're still learning. You don't know everything. So you better make sure you're getting that coaching. So that was really, really helpful for me. But yeah, so we changed some leadership. It was actually really important, you know, some leadership and some roles and responsibilities around the cabinet.
Yeah, I would add, especially early on in the change process, I was responsible for the instructional coaching team, and listening to them, you could hear that they were struggling to support their colleagues in change management. And so we did a session with new leaders, with just the instructional coaches on change management. And then from that, we had then tools that now they could name their own feelings as instructional coaches, and then they could help the teachers name the feelings and work through that in the same way. So we sort of had this system of a cascading message to our teachers with the support of new leaders.
Great, thank you. And what kinds of initiatives might you work on with the new Leaders Strategic Partnerships team in the future? So we talked a little bit about sort of your current projects. Looking forward, what are things that you're excited to work on?
Well, one thing that Superintendent Kirby had said was like,
Liz is fine.
Liz, one thing that Liz had said was that her strategic plan had one number in it. And I was thinking about like our strategic plan when I arrived there, and I don't think there were any numbers in our strategic plan. And so as we move forward, really understanding like, how are we going to measure our effectiveness of things to be more geared towards seeing the results in achievement and growth for our students. That's something that we'll continue to work on.
And in our district, we had a performance management structure. If you were ever in Chicago Public Schools, what are they called it PM, and then before that it was called something else, like ComStat for schools or whatever. But so we do have a performance management structure in place for our departments. I'm very excited because the team, I mean, they're so much better this year than they were like 2-3 years ago. So, but now we want to continue to refine that so that we are, you know, really reaching our goals for kids. I mean, here's a small thing. So, you know, our operations department, you know, they struggle with goals. So like, what should we be focused on? Okay, people feel like it's clean and healthy and there's a survey, but like, no, we need more than that. And so I'm like, you know, going to these schools, I don't they may be okay on the inside, but the outside, like, it doesn't even look like anybody's paying attention to like anything. Like, these schools look crazy. I was just having this conversation. I know it's the summer. Why do the schools look crazy outside? So now I'm like, okay, so we need to build this progress monitoring or whatever into our strategic plan, performance management work. We should really be checking this, so people know, we stand for excellence. This is what excellence looks like from an operational perspective. Okay, so that's something now we have to go back and refresh. So that's one thing. We're also bringing on a principal supervisor role in my district, and I'll be working with new leaders to support that transition and what that work looks like, because it'll look different than what it currently looks like. There'll be, of course, refinements and adjustments and all that. And we have many new leaders coming into our schools too as well. So, like, new principals, not new leaders, coming into our into roles as well. So we'll need those supports for them.
Great. And last question, is there anything else you'd like to share regarding your work with the New Leaders Strategic Partnerships team that we didn't cover earlier in the conversation? If not, that's okay.
Well, one thing I would say is, a lot of times in our roles, we all get like emailed to death from vendors. I could do this, I could do that. Like, everyone promises the world to you. Everyone has the solution for your issue. This is a different kind of partnership because it's not that Jenny and Michelle can do everything. But what they can do is help you think through, and some things they can do, right? But, like, for example, we're building out a data dashboard. And Jenny probably actually could build a data dashboard, but like, that's beyond her scope of work. However, as I was talking to vendors and kind of thinking that through, I could say, Jenny, you got that data eye. Is this right? Right. And you need that when you're in the roles where you're trying to make decisions and you don't know if they're good or bad, right? But even like small things, and this is why the Ohio piece really helps. As I'm hiring people, I can say, do you know this person? And often, like, they have that background, or at least know who I can talk to, if I'm trying to get background on something as well. So it's really it's probably one of the most unique partnerships that we have in the district, just because of the really unique role that they play with me. Invaluable. It would have been very difficult for me my first couple of years in this role without that partnership, even now, without that partnership, for sure. And now that they really know my district, I feel like we're really working on this together. Like, okay, all right, we still got work to do. I bring our results. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this. This is great. Oh my God, this is a mess. Like, we got to work on it. So that's how it's almost like you have like more people on your team, but they're like to the side.
Well, thank you both. Oh, sorry, Dan, were you gonna ask?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Well, thank you both so much for your kind words. We really, it's been a pleasure to be working with both of your districts. So thank you. Thank you. We wanted to open the floor and see if anybody had any questions for Dan or for Liz or for me about sort of the work more generally. If you do, feel free to just unmute yourself and popcorn out.
One thing, as people may be thinking, I want to share, and this is something that could go across whatever people's different roles are, because I know that there are people in a lot of different roles. But Jenny and Michelle also facilitate my annual retreat with my cabinet. So they help me plan that stuff out. And again, that may be something, it's helpful to have an outside partner to help you with that, to help you in the presentation, because then it gives you an opportunity to think when you're in the learning to yourself. So I would definitely kind of, I'm going to just share that experience, because we've been doing, this is our third year. So we just did the third, yeah. On that. So like that, those logistics, just that process has also been really helpful. And again, because they're partners with us, they kind of know the work happening with the team and where people are.
Hi, everyone. While I don't have a question, I just want to say I appreciate the full circle moment. Dr. Kirby was my principal when I was a student teacher in Chicago Public Schools. So I
was looking at your name, like,
yeah,
it's a familiar name.
So I just want to say thank you.
Hello. Wow.
Always such a small world.
I think I also coach from your students, Liz, at Kenwood.
Oh,
a male gymnast Ryan Carter that I coach.
Oh yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, it all comes around.
It does.
Yeah, I was cohort 7 in Chicago, so good to see you. Good to see you in Skokie. I just left Waukegan. So,
Oh, cool.
Hi, Liz. This is Evelyn. So I want to say hi first. And then
Fabulous
I do have a
profile picture, by the way. That is fabulous.
hey.
Do mine.
Thank you. I do have a question though. Taking you back to Chicago right now, we are shifting to distributed leadership. And it's nothing new. It's just generally just making sure that, as you are speaking about right now, every decision isn't made in the principal's lab or whoever the school leader is in their lab, and that you're sharing, you're like building thought partners out. So you all mentioned a lot about making sure there's common terminology between you and your strategic partner, having someone to bounce ideas off of, accountability. Is there any other like big advice? Like if we take away nothing else from this, any other like big one thing advice to make sure as we're building out these partnerships and this distributed collaboration in the schools?
I would say be intentional as it relates to kind of partnering with new leaders, be intentional about building those relationships, not just between you and the team, but also other people. Like I have to be kind of careful because I want other people to see value in the work. And yet I'm a little greedy in that I'm like, but this is also just kind of for me because I need this too. But if we want more people to benefit from the partnerships, you got to be strategic even in how you introduce and align people. So it's really funny because they do a good job and when they're engaging with the team of, really being friendly, developing personal relations, like building those kinds of things too as well. So that other people who are not new leaders, folks who don't, who just don't have that history also see value and also trust, the partnership too as well. I probably could have done a better job at making sure people can have the same level of vulnerability, with Jenny and Michelle. And because I'm like, they're new leaders and I'm new leaders and new leaders is great, so people might be like, okay, all right. So, in retrospect, I would think about that because, this work and leadership teams it's tricky, you're always navigating some politics. And so you have to kind of be mindful of that so you get the full benefit of that. So how you build out, how you introduce, who you connect with, who's talking to who, have conversations sometimes without you in it, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Good advice. As always. Thank you.
Well, we're getting to the end of our time together. So I wanted to thank all of you so much for participating, not just in our breakout session, but also in the Alumni Town Hall. I'm putting in the chat right now the link to our program survey. As you all know, we are big on collecting feedback at new leaders. And so we'd really appreciate it if you took the time to complete the survey with your feedback. After you're done completing the survey, you're welcome to log off the Zoom. If you have additional questions or want to talk more with the larger Alumni Impact and Strategic Partnerships team, you can go back to the main room. People will still be sort of chit-chatting in there. But if not, thank you again so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.